Okay, let's go for it. Hello, hello, hello. It's that time of year, time of month. It's nearly the end of the year. Even what is she talking about? It's just because it's Black Friday. Crazy. Um, welcome to PMO HotHouse. Shall we crack on and see what's been going on this month? Whoosh. Hopefully you're all right. We'd love to know where you are in the world. As you probably know, oh, we're doing it again. We're doing it again. It's all over the place. All over the place, what it is, I've got a new environment for our house this month. I'm normally at a really media center desk and I can just switch buttons and I know exactly what I'm doing. But today, different circumstances, but still the same great PMO HotHouse, and yeah, it's November, end of the month in November. We've got a packed sessions today with lots of different insights because we've been
Out and
really
about.
busy out and about. Yes, essentially. So that will definitely be on the cards. But before we get into all of that. And just a reminder before John takes us through the latest news that we're chatting here in the audience. If you've got your chat windows open, we always want to see you chattering. And if you're watching us on LinkedIn or Facebook, please do put comments in there too, because we do get those as well. So please do that as well. So yeah, John, over to you.
Hey everyone, how are you doing? You're going to hear today about the PMO conference, learning from that. There was a blue light thing, we're going to hear about that as well. So I've skipped those two and just given you a bit of context around it because it definitely seems to be the season for getting everyone together for conferences, awards ceremonies. So there's been the PMI Global Summit has happened in the US, where I think the sort of big headline there was the fact that they've launched the new guide to the uh, project management body of knowledge. More on that one in a second. There's been awards everywhere. So APM has done their award ceremony. There's their PMO of the year winner there from a data communications company. They won it for APM. Their PMO forming strategically aligned teams supporting a portfolio valued at 240 million. In the short time they've been there, they've unified frameworks, enhanced governance, improved forecasting, and they've got some stats to match it as well. So on-time delivery is improved by 53%, and I'm not sure if the project management community will like this one, but they've cut PM resource needs by 21%. So I know you can read that two ways. It's a absolute success story for the PMO. They've done a great job there. Or you could read it the other way and sort of say, well, actually, if we reduce project managers, do we get more projects delivered on time? I will leave that with you to judge. It's not for me to say. Other things that have been going on, PMI also have their own PMO awards because you can never have too many. I think at some point we're going to need one to rule them all. Then maybe there should be a big dance off of all the different PMO of the Year awards all coming together. Maybe a sort of Thunderdome type thing where they all sort of fight it out. There can only be one. But on the PMI side of things, a PMO from
Easy to
Pegasus.
say.
Sincere apologies for that one. This is a PMO from a finance company in Indonesia. I've not been able to get much of the blurb out of this one, I must admit, on exactly what it is that's made them outstanding. Suffice to say, PMI process is pretty rigorous for deciding on who goes forward and gets the award there. They've run it up through different regions, so they were the regional winner first, and then the global winner there. So if I do find anything else, a bit more detail about their PMO, of course, I will share that on LinkedIn sort of afterwards. And of course, all of this has been backed up by all the usual posts on LinkedIn about how humbled everybody is, about how wonderful it is to be involved in these kind of things as well. Lots of information and hot takes on the PMI conference. Again, you can find loads of those out there. One quote I pulled out though, Kim Scott, who I love, author of Radical Candor, was speaking at the PMI summit. There's a nice quote from her there from her talk. Somebody pulled out was a huge part of successfully driving any kind of project is to paint a picture of what's possible, which is a nice reminder that whilst we have all the technical and process-driven things we expect project managers to do, that storytelling and taking people on a journey remains absolutely vital. So a nice little reminder there. Right, so diving on to the next slide, this is the one I hinted at a second ago. There is a new guide to the project management body of knowledge from PMI. Again, this is another one. If you're a LinkedIn person, then there have been more hot takes on this than there have been pages in the guide over the last few weeks. Some of those from people who are experts, others have been created by a lot of AI slop as well. I just want to highlight two things I think that's kind of really sort of stuck out for me. Firstly is PMI has a new definition of a project, which is on screen for you now. Now, one of the things that's nice about this is that they have finally moved away from the project being the project being unique, or the project outputs being unique, which is one I think we've talked about in this forum before and other forums as well, where for PMO people especially, what we're looking for is the commonality between projects so we can learn from one, reapply that learning to others, reducing risk for projects going forwards and moving towards that model where we're increasing on-time delivery and value delivered by projects because we're learning and doing things better as we go. So it's nice to see that they're no longer explicitly calling out the projects as being unique. Couldn't get rid of the word unique entirely, so they're talking about the unique context of a project, which is fine. It's still a temporary initiative that I think we can all agree on and remains one of the key differentials, I think, for me at least, between a project and dropping work into an agile structure where you have the teams fixed and you're dropping pieces of work into a team that stay together a long time. So it's more of an operational construct rather than a project construct there. Although, of course, PMOs work across both with slightly different angles on things. Which brings us nicely onto the PMO. PMO is mentioned 160 times in the PMBOK guide, and they've got an entire appendix about the PMO. Eileen's written that one down. There you go. Those are the stats you want on a Friday afternoon. They've got a PMO value proposition in there, which I quite like. And the core value prop of a PMO lies in its ability to enable strategic execution, enhance delivery performance, and strengthen organizational capabilities across portfolios, programs, and projects. Absolutely fantastic. I absolutely agree with that for a strategic PMO. My only sort of slight wince at this one, which is a regular reminder to everyone outside of the PMO space, that whilst there is a lot of talk at the moment about our strategic PMOs and our enterprise PMOs, that is only one type of PMO. We do have program PMOs that play an absolutely vital role, PMOs within projects as well that also play a vital role. Those don't have that same sort of core value prop. They're very much focused on pulling together those program teams, being that sort of glue that holds it all together. And same for project teams as well, very much focused on alignment there. So I'd say there's slightly different value props for different types of PMOs. And whilst there is a lot of very, very good work and a lot of insight being developed and a lot of advocacy for strategic PMOs and enterprise PMOs at the moment, that shouldn't be taking away from the importance of program PMOs and project PMOs there as well. Diving on to the next one, I've only got 3 bits of news for you today because there is so much to get through. So on the next slide, again, I've been reading all the white papers and all of the journal articles for you This is just one I wanted to call out, and I'll share a link to this one in a second. But it's from the International Journal of Managing Projects in Business, volume 18, number 67, which has caused great amusement for my teenagers. Apologies for saying 67 out loud for anyone who has kids and is sick to death of it. This is the effects of project management information systems, PMIS. Um, on project manager performance. So it's looking at the connection there between if you've got an information system for project management, how does that affect project manager performance? And they do have a definition of a PMIS in there. They're defining it as a centralized digital platform designed to support the planning, execution, monitoring, and control of projects by integrating key functions such as scheduling, resource allocation, work authorization, budgeting, risk management, and communication. So kind of a cross between a sort of knowledge base and a sort of PPM tool is kind of how they're sort of defining it there. Interesting to note that of the people they interviewed, 19% of those project managers didn't have access to any such tool at all. But what was interesting is, whilst they were only setting out to focus on that initially, they've done a lot of actually looking at what the role of the PMO is in this, and they've gone on to recommend further research on the sort of PMO side of engagement with PMIS systems and the importance of a PMO there. Now, headline things here: when we think about implementing a PMIS structure in your organizations, this gives some nice statistical correlated evidence that satisfaction and perceived usefulness. So from a project manager's perspective, their scoring of satisfaction and the perceived usefulness of a PMIS system strongly predict the manager. So if project managers are happy with the PMIS system in place, if they perceive it as useful, that response is strongly correlated with individual performance of project managers. Your project managers are better if they are satisfied with your system that you have in place for managing knowledge, information around the project and the project cycle that you have in your organization. What's even more interesting to note in there is that they found the PMO support strengthens that link as well. So if there's a PMO in place that is supporting the project managers maintaining the PMIS system rather than being something distinct from a PMO, and I'm not quite sure where those exist, but there was a nice correlation there as well between if a PMO is there supporting the PMIS, then we're seeing a higher correlation between satisfaction and then also through to the individual performance of the project manager as well. So there we go. PMOs, as we all know, absolutely great for supporting project managers delivering on organizational goals. What we're now also seeing is actual evidence from research that is showing having a PMIS in place also is strongly correlated to highly performing project managers when there is a PMO supporting those systems as well. So if you're looking at implementing those kind of systems, looking to pull business cases together, this is probably a good report for you to give you that kind of statistical evidence and research evidence to back it up with. As always, I will share comments. I'll share links shortly after this in the comments. And if you've got any questions, do reach out and give me a shout.
Well, there was a fight. I don't know if you've seen that in the chat.
I haven't. I was limited on screens. I'm just looking at it now. Does Excel?
Excel? It's always Excel, right? Excel's always a problem. Is Excel a PMIS?
It can be used to build your PMIS, I would say. I mean, it's quite an interesting one because I mean, this is true of all. Even if you look at the most you can buy out there, whether you've got a sort of a fancy or bells and whistles one, whether you're using a Microsoft Planner, whatever tool you might be using, that's the tool that you're putting your knowledge into. That these systems don't, with the exception of one that I can think of, but they don't normally come with knowledge. And even if they do come with knowledge, it's not your organization's knowledge. It's quite generic. So could you build a PMI system with Excel and SharePoint? Well, yes, you you could. It's not a tool designed for it, but there's nothing stopping you doing that. And I say there's nothing inherently wrong with it. But PMIS is a far more about the quality of the data and insight you've got in there, making things as easy as possible for the project managers to choose the right path and do the right things, and help them find the answers they need to let them deliver on organizational objectives successfully. I'd say focus on that and then look at the right tool for you. If you're a very new PMO and you're just working things through and you've got a high volume of change, do you know what? Excel is probably good enough while you figure things out. Don't go in something that locks you down too soon, too early.
I love it. There's like nerdy chats about Excel only here on PMO HotHouse. Thank you very much, Sean. I'm hoping my audio is going to be okay for this because it's drifting a bit. But let's move on. Shall we move on? Up to you, Eileen.
I was just thinking we need some PMO dancers, don't we? Some kind of decided rather than just kind of vague movements. Right then, I'm going to just talk to you quickly about PMO Learn. So I see there's a number on who were at the at PMO Learn. But for those of you who weren't, I just want to give you some real incentive to go and find the presentations, because it was one of those years where, you know, sometimes we have ones that kind of go more favoured than others, but this year the general feeling was they were all really, really useful, and the comments afterwards that they were actually practical and helpful rather than kind of nice bits of theory, which is what we try to do at PMO Learn. So first up on the day, is, if we can go forward, Lindsay, the first one on the day was Carol. I know she's on the call. I'm sure she doesn't want to talk about it. She talked about it then, and she talked about the options framework. And though she did try and get us all do dancing and kind of stretching, it was really about understanding a portion of what's in the better business cases theory. So this is a part of the theory which can be, it doesn't have to be this, you know, you don't have to use all of the better business cases. You can take it out and stand alone, and it helps us to really think through what are some realistic options. And most people, as we say, kind of talk about having 3 options in the business case. This talks about getting us to a minimum of 12 options and then going through a structured process of kind of discounting some of those options, but all for kind of good and fair and transparent reasons, rather than just because we don't like them or that stakeholder wasn't too impressed with them. So it talks through kind of spending objectives, really trying to understand what the purpose of the project or initiative is. And then the next slide on there, Lindsay, is really talking about the options framework, which is kind of where we'll look at 5 different dimensions. So typically when we look at options, we talk through an option in all of its kind of characteristics. The options framework teaches us how to look at 5 different dimensions, as is mentioned there. And then what we can do is kind of look at the various different combinations of those 5 different characteristics. Tends to generate an awful lot more options. And interestingly, I was doing some work yesterday with a client on this, and she was talking about she's really struggling in one of her projects to get more than kind of just 4 options, and so we used it and we ended up with over 1,000 options really very quickly, which is a bit scary, but you know, it's very easily done. So a great section there if your organization is really struggling with options, or you feel as though the business case that you get is really just a Hobson's choice and you've got it's either what's been proposed or nothing at all. Second section was a really interesting session, and this was a session done from a guy who I would suspect most of us haven't even heard of. I met him when I was over in Reed, a guy called Ivan Vapsvarov. Oh, yeah, he's got a surname I can't say, but Ivan, and he's a really really good guy, and he's working with organizations again, working with them about saying, actually, we don't want the extremes of agile or waterfall. Surely what we really want is an optimal implementation and get all of the best bits for waterfall and all of the best bit from agile, but applying them correctly on our projects. And interestingly, in terms organizations say we use Agile, which means that they've got a standard process which incorporates Agile and waterfall elements. And what Ivan was encouraging us to do was actually kind of look at it on a project by project basis and use some kind of processes to start thinking how best to apply these without necessarily having kind of a huge level of complexity. So we talked a bit about, kind of what are the best bits of the predictability of waterfall and the flexibility of Agile, and understand kind of all of the benefits of a hybrid method. And then the next slide says actually there's three ways to approach it. We can either do it from an inside out approach where we've got kind of Agile embedded within a waterfall structure, or waterfall embedded within an Agile structure. We can do it on a phase by phase approach, or at each phase of the project we say, well, what's the best way to deliver this phase? Is it Agile or is it waterfall? Or the stream based approach that says as we go through the project there's different kind of streams of work. Some of those streams are going to be using a waterfall approach, and some of those streams, typically the IT elements, are going to be using an Agile approach. So what was amazing about this session was you look at it and think, do you know, that just makes complete sense. Why is nobody just put it in such simplistic way before? Because it just and it's one of those things, but until somebody actually writes it down, you go, duh, of course. So I think really, really helpful, particularly for those organizations where, you're kind of really struggling and you're being encouraged to use Agile, but actually, waterfall is possibly a kind of a better approach. This gets a really kind of a really kind of a logical and a structured approach to using the best of both without kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So really good. The next session, some dodgy person called Eileen talked about the complexity matrix. And although you can do a bespoke complexity matrix, there is one on the next slide where we talk about the DECA framework, which is created. It's had lots of different ownership, but it currently sits at the Office of National Statistics. On the ONS website, you can kind of download it for free, which basically says at the start of a project and at various times in the project, you can look at 12 different factors of the project to work out how big and ugly it is and how difficult it's going to be to deliver for your particular organization. And then what that does, a National Audit Office, I'm close. And the next slide says, well, actually, if we understand how complex that is from a PMO perspective, we can help the project manager, the sponsor, come up with what's the best way of delivering that project. So rather than have a one size fits all, it allows us to tailor our approach. So, we can kind of tailor things like the governance structure, the PMO involvement, how we do risks, etc., depending on the complexity of that project. So what was quite interesting on the day is only a couple of organizations actually have something like that in place. And again, it's really easy as a kind of certainly a low maturity PMO to have a kind of, this is our answer to project management, this is how we do things. The DECA framework or a complexity framework allows you to create a level of flex within that allows you to kind of make sure that your approach is appropriate to the size of projects that you deliver. And then the final session was done by Mike Weston-Burt, PMO's new superpower, as he called it. And I'm just going to say, we had some really interesting sessions through that session. And I know Lindsay's going to talk about the blue light or the NANOR event, as I like to call it. What was really interesting is that although we're still talking about kind of what do we do with AI, it's been really interesting to see how a number of organizations are now using AI to sort out problems. So AI is not seen to be something that is a problem we need to think about how we're going to use it, but actually we've got all of these other problems. How best can we use AI to help us? And what was really interesting from that was then some of the things that Mike talked about was how to use it more intelligently. So rather than kind of just explaining what it was, he actually starts, so this kind of slide here says, well, actually, if you're going to do a prompt into Chat GPT, then actually think about constructing your chat using kind of these kind of 6 different elements. So rather than just say, tell me what are the top 5 things I need to think about, you can actually kind of put in kind of from somebody's perspective, yes, what we want, but actually the context which that's going to be used, any other kind of instructions, specifically what you want the kind of output format might be, and actually those kind of some conditions. So really kind of useful for that. And then the other thing which you introduced us to, and I know Lindsay and I are using to great effect for a whole range of different things, is Google Notebooks, about the ability to load up reference documents. And we often talk about that this concept of AI hallucinating and making up things that don't really exist. What's really good with notebooks, it does actually just use the references that you give it, and it will give you and tell you from which document those references are. So really kind of helpful where you've got some reference document and you want to synthesize that information and query and add it. So as I said, Lindsay and I are using notebooks quite a lot at the moment. So 4 really good sessions, 4 really practical sessions, definitely worth going to have a look at it in a little bit more detail, so you can kind of use them in your organization.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Let's move on, because it was a busy out, obviously, up in Edinburgh. And yes, there's then the conference for next day. So loads going on there. But we've got somebody with us today on the session who's actually there in a voluntary capacity for us. This is something that we've done over the last few conferences, where anybody who wants to volunteer, there's various different volunteer roles. We've got Aaron on that obviously emceed one of the rooms. We've got Zoe on that was helping around the building, and then we've got Tanya who's going to hopefully come off mute. Put your camera on, let's have a look at you. Who is there as a conference reporter. It's important for us that we get to hear what the response is from a practitioner point of view and listening to some of this stuff. So the role of the conference reporter is really just to go in, listen to some of the sessions, and basically write about them. So when these become available in the library, which we're starting to trickle out, we'll be able to include their voices and their insights and their takeaways, rather than it just being purely about what it is that we've taken away from it. Tanya, so how did you get on at the PMO conference?
Hi everyone. Hi there.
Hello.
Thanks for having me. I hope my sound is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, my name is Tanya and I'm a PMO manager for Glasgow University. And I'm really delighted to be able to share a couple of thoughts with you about my experience at the PMO conference. This time as a reporter, like a Kim Korn sort of thing. I wish I have had like a really fast scribbling feather quill that would have been nice. So actually, this was already my second time at the conference, and this time, again, I came as a reporter. And I have to say, first things first, it is actually really beneficial, because sometimes we do have these light bulb moments while we're in the session, but because it is very fast paced, you tend to forget them if you don't write them down, and even more so if you don't go through your notes after perhaps a couple of days. So I found it quite helpful to actually having to go through my notes in order to, hand them over to Lindsay and Eileen, and to really implement these things into my PMO. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out to you in a couple of minutes. So again, like I said, this was already my second time at the conference, and I really have to say I mostly came back because of the community. I mean, there is something really great about being, surrounded by people who understand the work we do, the challenges and the quirks and everything that comes with it. And there were 2 sessions that stood out for me this year. I was going to speak about a third one, but Eileen already took it away from me because it was a PMO Learn. So the first session I wanted to really quickly talk about was Zoe O'Toole's session on the language we use as PMOs. I took copious amounts of notes there. So basically what she did is that she reminded us that our value as PMO isn't really in showing how much we know about specific project models, which we love to do. We love to be very intellectual about the things we know and about the things we learn. It is more about being translators, which means like taking complex information, making it meaningful and practical for the audience in front of us. That was a really good session, and she came up with a quick model. Again, we love a good model, showing how basically sponsors and delivery teams and owners all needed different insights, and that was a real aha moment for me, because it does speak to a challenge where, as PMOs, we all sort of face that we try to show value in a way that actually lands with the people we are currently working with, and that might look different to the users of the data and of the information we provide. So that was a really good session. The second session I wanted to quickly talk about was actually the closing keynote from Dr. Stephen. Is it Sparling?
Yeah, it is.
I was full on thinking for the first 10 minutes that he was called Sparkling, and he was
Well, yeah, that's nice too.
no business. Like, how is this possible? What a good name, but he's actually called Sparling. It was so refreshing having someone who doesn't have any skin in the game, who's not a PMO manager themselves, coming on and just offering this sort of perspective. And it was very refreshing because he basically talked about and encouraged us to reframe our daily challenges through creativity and giving ourselves some constraints and limits and guardrails, and then just playing with them. I mean, every one of us has probably sat in front of an empty page and thought, oh my God, I don't even know the first sentence. Where do I have to start? But just giving us some limits, making things really short and concise, and just giving some limits to ourselves can really help at that point. So what he did is he had us come up with words that how we would summarize our personal experience at the conference, and then he made us think of and Google synonyms for these words, which was already like having good chats with your neighbors left and right. And then he let us pick a challenge and write a haiku about it, which is a specific form of poem. And I wrote one about our reporting. Perhaps I'm going to pop it in the chat later. Let's see. It really completely shifted how I think about creativity at work, because sometimes it is something that I used to step away from, because we all want to be very serious and professional, but it has nothing to do with being unprofessional when you lean into being creative. So I'm already planning a hopefully very creative planning session with my own team for a 2026 schedule, and that session really stuck with me.
Okay, lovely. Well, I'd love to know how the creative planning session goes. So we'll certainly be tapping you up to find out more about that. I think a lot of people really enjoyed we always have the final session of a conference, something that is different, something that's not necessarily directly PMO related. And it's a subject that I wanted to do for a while. And I think it's like, what else can we be doing with it? Because it's also one of the things in the a skill that's in the PMO competency framework as well. So, because it's there, it's like, what else can we be doing that gets us to think differently? And for me personally, I've been using ChatGPT to help me with my creativity as well, which is really like, you think, oh, IT, tech, whatever, but actually it's really good for getting you to think differently. And I put one of the prompts in there. But thank you so much, Tanya. That's amazing. And we're going to be sharing your stuff in the library as well. And if anybody else is interested in future conferences, is this something that you want to do and have a go at, you just need to get in touch. And then just finally, then from me, is just, I was there at the conference, and actually having an opportunity to see some stuff myself, because we had a great team around us and volunteers, which meant that Eileen and I, very rarely we get pulled this way and that, and we can't actually go and listen to some sessions. Actually, for the first time in 10 years, I actually managed to go and see a session in every single time slot, which was lovely and just brilliant, and really, really enjoyed my day, it took 10 years to get there, but I know that's why we set this conference up, isn't it, Eileen, that we wanted to create something
Absolutely.
that we would love to go to. But my my takeaways are going to be coming, I think. Well, I think we need probably a deeper session, and we will be scheduling something about everything that we've learned over the last 12 months, as well as pulling out some of this stuff. Some of the interesting things, just making the connection straight away. So we talked about the creativity one, which was great. Psychological safety, we've never done that before. And a link back to what John was just saying then about the thing at the PMI conference about, what was it, radical candor? Candor was also talked about in that psychological safety session as well. So it seems to be like you're making these connections between things, but that session wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But I think it's this really interesting one about our relationships with people, and some of this more behavioral side of the stuff that we do. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that one with the wider community in the library. We had a really great session, and we don't necessarily put these things together in this way, but there was one on the competency framework, and it was a great session by Eileen, which was how she's used the competency framework and how she's used the development plan and assessment stuff that PMO Learning have been putting out. In other words, these are direct things that she, from listening to some of the sessions we've done, has been able to take some real stuff and make it happen in her organization. So she's utilized frameworks and development plans, and she's also got herself a promotion in the long run with it as well. So it's really good to see practical elements like that. There were so many other stuff. There was a business-driven PMO with fantastic, work that they have done. That graph there right at the top in the middle for Shockwave Medical, that is their growth in millions that basically the PMO had to get its arms around in such a short space of time. Really brilliant to hear some really like show-stopping stories like that. Lots of other things going on, as you know, from the conference. There's always something, but those were just some of the things that I managed to listen to over the day, and exhausted and ended up in a cowboy bar, and then it was karaoke, so what a day. Also out and about, and I just want to make sure we've got time for this one, because this was a new one for a House of PMO in terms of a focus. I don't know how many of you are aware that I think it was early last year we did a focus on higher education to get to understand what their challenges are. This time it was blue light, and that's emergency services. So that's NHS, ambulance, police, fire, and essentially anybody whose PMOs are going to be, with projects and change that are obviously helping frontline services like that. We did it with the help of Atkins, the consulting firm Atkins, in order to be able to put this venue together and put this event together in central London. Now, the really interesting thing about this is, even though it's blue light and emergency services, because of our unique position in terms of where we're curating stuff at House of PMO, these outcomes are not just emergency services related, believe me. Just to give you a quick of an eyesight, because what we're doing, we will be producing a report. We've already started to pull it together, and the insights are amazing in terms of, I think that any PMOs are going to be able to take this stuff away. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of what kind of came out of it in terms of where the focus needs to be or where the challenges are, and some of the good stuff that people are already doing. It's just this is the nub of it. Yes, there's some challenges. Yes, there's some opportunities, but what are people actually doing? So first of all, executive sponsorship throughout the day kept coming out all the time, not just about executive sponsorship for PMO, but all about executive sponsors being visible because of a direct correlation to delivery confidence. When the sponsors are visible and doing what they're doing, there's a direct relation to, you don't probably need to hear this, it makes sense. But when you start to hear it across a room with different services and different organizations, and you see the scale of just how many things are not in place around the executive sponsorship, it's certainly one of Eileen's lovely pet subjects. There needs to be more that we're doing around that, because a number of people that ask for, is there any kind of training or workshopping or stuff that we can be doing as PMO people for the sponsors? It's a bit tricky and a bit more complex, but I think we'll be revisiting it in 2026. I think it'll definitely be one of the trends as well, which we'll be putting out shortly. Shaking off Project Police. Moving to, we want to be insights based, we want to be that strategic partner, as or PMI called it, a business partner. talking capability gaps, project managers, not accidental project managers, occasional project managers is the a key phrase there. Capability gaps in terms of in the PMO, and also then the additional need for training, good training for our delivery teams. Prioritization, another one big one, because everything in emergency services is a priority. However, PMOs are bringing realism to it by being able to show insights. A great example was one of the organizations said we've been using heat maps around the prioritization stuff. When the execs could see that 40 projects cannot land in one quarter, that was their aha moment to say, we've got to do better than this. We can't do this. We can't keep treating everything as an emergency, as a key priority. So there's a lot of stuff around prioritization. Yes, value for money, lots around complex change. And that biggie, the big word is change, and specifically change fatigue. Looking at everything that's going on in that sector, you know, they get knocked in terms of the budgets, things get pulled. A lot of projects get kicked off, political changes, things get scaled back. People have got that fatigue. But the report is going to show how people and what people are doing in the PMO to help overcome some of these challenges, change them into opportunities, and what it is that they're actually doing. There's some great people in the room that shared. And interestingly for us this time, we recorded every single round table. So that's why it's going to take a little while to just digest it all, but it just means that there's so much insight out there, and it's going to make a really great report. But I know many of you, even if you're working in the sector or not, are going to be able to take something away from that. A great session, and hopefully we can do something again next year, focusing on a new area to find out what we can be doing to help those people in those particular sectors. Finally, yes, it's Black Friday. As Chris was saying, he's woken up this morning, 35 emails all about Black Friday. But if you're listening to this and you're not a member yet, to let you know that we've just got a deal on over the weekend. So that's from today through to Monday, end of Monday. If you're not a member yet, have a look at the individual memberships, look at the corporate memberships. You will get one of the free books as a signing on bonus through Black Friday. So I think we're coming to the end of the marathon session. We really appreciate your attention and hope that you've got some stuff out of that. But we're not finished yet. There's more things going on, and I've just got an early insight into the deck that we're looking at on the 9th of December about behaviors. It's fantastic. We have got somebody coming in to talk to us that has been around for many years, and he has never been able to find an outlet for it. He said, I've learned all this stuff over the years. I'd really like to share it with other people that are coming up, or, you know, and he has just sent me the presentation. It looks fantastic. There's so much stuff in it that you're just going to think, oh, this is great. This is exactly what we need. So behaviors, that's coming up. It's a lunchtime session. The day before that, though, is Mega Projects Conference, which again, if you're working in that field, that is on our calendar. It's not our event. However, Eileen, you're talking at it, aren't you? You've got a session on that. So good to see representation from PMO point of view at such a big industry event like Mega Project. So, you know, that's your big construction engineering type works type stuff. So good to have PMO rep there. And then there's one final thing is that we are doing our inside PMO for next year. We want to look at specialist roles in the PMO. So we are going to be doing it in Scotland for a change. We've always done them in London more or less. I think we once did it in Manchester. Let's get up to Scotland. But it's specifically about specialist roles in the PMO. So if you're in a PMO where you have some individual specialist roles, we want to know about them. Come and have a lunch with us. It'd be a fantastic lunch. Talk to us all about it. Help us create the next Inside PMO report. And just to let you know, we've already got the dates in for PMO conference for 2026. You should get in there early. These are the preview rates. And if you've been at the conference this year, there's a returner rate, which housekeeper Emily would have been in touch with you about. Please do make sure you sign up if you can early, get the best rates. Again, it's going to be another corker in London this next year. So I think that's it. Yes, Eileen, John, anything else to add, or are we away? Oh, you're on mute, dear.
I think we're good. I think you've covered everything, and we're on time today. Well done.
I know. It's Wednesday. You've got a minute to draw
High
back.
five.
Okay, lovely.
No,
Okay, sorry, Eileen.
I know. I was just going to say I love the chat through this as well. So if you didn't open your chat box, your chat as you went through, you've missed out on a whole kind of bit. So definitely kind of worth revisiting again and having a look at the chat.
Okay, well, I didn't manage to do it with my little. Well, I'm on a laptop today. This is just a nightmare, but I'm going to look at it now, and I will probably share some in our LinkedIn group. And if you're not a member of the group, you're missing some stuff there too. So go and find that LinkedIn. Put in House of PMO. We have a group and a company page. Make sure you're in the group. We'll be sharing some of the other bits and pieces. All right, take care for now then, and we've got one more HotHouse before the end of the year, which will be, I do believe it is the 19th of December. Hopefully you can join us. We're going to be looking at everything that we've learned. I suspect it's going to be a busy one. There's a lot of stuff we've learned over the last 12 months. We'll see you then. Okay, take care everybody.
Bye everybody.
Take care,
Bye
everyone.
for now.